Hi, I'm Park Howell, and welcome to the Business of Story, where purpose-driven people like you learn how to craft and tell compelling stories to grow your revenue and amplify your impact. If you would like to clarify your story in under 30 minutes, visit me at businessofstory.com, because you gotta own your story to grow your brand.
I thought it was just a stupid picture of a pig in the ocean. But after hearing that story, I had to have it. Now I wasn't just buying a picture. I was buying a story. Story literally made the picture worth more money to me.
That's what businesses are about. People buy brands. People buy stories much more than anything else.
I work with a lot of big enterprise companies, but let's just say I always tell folks, drop the PowerPoint, close your laptops, start with your story.
If you want people to get engaged and you want people to act, you have to tell them an emotionally powerful story. And that's with great characters, it's with uncertain outcomes, and it's with high stakes and drama.
All business strategy is a story.
Hi, welcome back to Business of Story. Park Howell here. So glad to have you with us today. You know, Business of Story is like your explainer audio on how to tell your story on purpose. Today, however, we're focusing on a subject we have yet covered. We're focusing on explainer videos. You know, those short movie trailers we use to intrigue prospects into our brand story and hopefully beckon them into an irresistible product offering or service. And on today's show, we have the explainer of explainer videos, the founder of Explanify, Eric Hinson. You'll learn the ideal story structure for a 90-second explainer video. Explanify's unique Uncovery process that you can use to get to the heart of your story, how to turn your complex and abstract content into captivating, concrete information that your audiences will love through storytelling, and you'll get answers to how long does it take, how much does it cost, and how good is the shelf life until I have to create another explainer video. We've got all that right now for you. Guess we got some splaining to do, Lucy, so let's dive right in with Eric Hinson of Explanify. Hey, Eric, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Park.
Yeah, Explanify. I mean, the name says it, at least I think it says it. Explanify videos. You are about explainer videos. What is an explainer video?
It's kind of like a go-to tool for businesses nowadays. What it is it's really hard to explain what you do in a short amount of time. Let's say 60 seconds, 2 minutes at tops. It's a tool to quickly introduce your brand, what you do, how you solve your customers' problems, and just create powerful impact and equip viewers with kind of crucial information that they need to make a decision. You see it used a ton in business-to-business type companies, enterprise as well, a lot less in the B2C realm, but our customers are mainly in that B2B sector.
And so, I mean, haven't people been doing explainer videos for a long time, or why do we now actually have a category of explainer video?
Yeah, so it's a niche that popped up about 7 or 8 years ago, I'd say, with Common Craft. They did, basically, this guy and his wife started creating these videos to explain things that were complex, like RSS. And Twitter and different things like this that didn't quite exist in your world and in your mind. And they had to kind of create this world and simplify this world for you through visuals and through story. And so they basically rigged up a camera above a whiteboard on the floor and started making paper cutouts and pushed these in front of the camera and, created this story, this world for you. And it's evolved a lot from since then. It's moved to fully animated or motion graphics like we do, completely custom graphics. But it's a powerful niche, and the reason that it's successful is, it's quite different than just typical broadcast video, which can cost you, $100,000 plus for TV commercials, promotions, that kind of thing. This is really about getting to the core of a message, getting rid of your curse of knowledge, simplifying everything to its absolute core, and making sure that people understand it in 2 minutes or less.
So it sounds like Common Craft, you said started this 7 or 8 years ago, and I think I remember some of those videos you're talking about. I suppose they were really launching off the trend of the web, the interwebs, and we were all trying to figure out how do you make an RSS feed work and how do you plug this in? So they had kind of this natural knowledge base that they needed to educate the world on, and they were all demo or explainer videos back then, I suppose. So that's kind of where the industry built out of, it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. Lee kind of discovered the space, and he had been just explaining things in the corporate world for a long time. Just I don't know if there's a role back then or if there even is one now. I would assume there is, but a role that's just sort of like a strategist, kind of making things as simple as possible so people can understand and get buy-in throughout an organization. And then he realized we need to do this with a visual reference, and so he created these things for business, for his business, and then eventually just started creating them for other businesses. And then we came in the market about 5 years ago, one of the first 5 in the market, and we quickly grew, very successful, done lots of great work for amazing Fortune 500 companies, but there have become a lot of copycats in this space. There are thousands of explainer video companies now, and you can get them for as cheap as, $300, which I wouldn't recommend, but the space is commoditized. People are kind of jumping on the bandwagon, but what you need to do is look for a company that understands story structure, no matter which structure you use. I know you use a different one than StoryBrand uses, and the hero's journey, and there's all these different kinds of story structures. But someone that understands the basics of that, but also really tries to meet a business objective, because the whole point of the clarity is to meet a business objective.
Yeah. So you and your wife started Explanify, is that right?
Correct. Yeah, my wife and I started. She had an illustration and design background, and I had an animation background. And so I was working at an advertising agency, really focused on digital. So I'd say a digital agency. And we were working on strategic initiatives and basically kind of went the same route that Lee did before I even knew him, just kind of trying to explain things to these big companies we were selling projects to, and we would create these faux 2D worlds with After Effects, Adobe After Effects, and we could end up winning these multi-million-dollar pitches because we just created this world that people, couldn't quite see on paper. It's just not the same if it's just drawn images or just text on a page. It's so much better when you bring it to life.
What's your favorite Explanify video you've created in the past 5 years?
That's a really hard one. Because
I know they're all your kids, right? So you love them
right?
all equally, but there's got to be that one or two that really stand out in your mind.
Right. So it was really amazing working with General Electric, GE. We got a project with them to they brought a lot of power to the country of Egypt. So we got to basically do a video for the entire country of Egypt. And so that was really amazing. They brought, I can't remember the numbers, 2-something gigawatts, something like that, of power to this country. And they made a huge PR announcement. They went over there. They had a large press party, and I believe that the president or king or whatever the ruler is there was actually there to watch the video, and they presented it, and he loved it. And so we just got a lot of good feedback on that, and it was really cool to kind of think about the cultural sensitivities and the different things that we had to do to make this video extra special for that event.
And what did you possibly have to explain to the Egypts about GE power creation?
It was less about GE in themselves. It was more brand focused, sort of like hiding the brand, making it a little more subtle. But it was basically they brought these power centers to Egypt to create more power. They have these rolling blackouts and brownouts all the time, and they barely have power for a whole day in some areas there, especially the rural areas. And so GE basically made this giant announcement. I can't remember the exact amount, millions or billions of dollars deal to come bring power so they can stop these rolling blackouts and brownouts. And so what we did was kind of created this world and said, here's what it would be like here's what it's currently like. Here's the status quo. And then here's what we're going to do to make this better for you. And it was just sort of like a PR type piece.
And how long was that piece?
I think that was just under 2 minutes.
Yeah, because you talk a lot about creating story in 90 seconds or less to be as simple and clear as possible. So how do you go about that? What sort of story structure? You're right. I've got my 10-step story structure, but I use that for a lot of different things. And I also boil it down to just the 3 aspects of the and button. Therefore, that can be hugely powerful. How do you do it? What does your story structure look like in 90 seconds or less?
Yeah, so it kind of looks like we start with listening to the customer and the business and what makes you unique and what are your specific goals, and then we work on kind of brand messaging and styles from there, and create a video through a whole about 8 to 10 week process. But it starts with the core Uncovery. So we typically follow sort of a character has a problem who meets a guide, shows them the way, and there's a call to action, and if you take it or if you don't, that kind of structure, a mix of the hero's journey. We basically ask a lot of questions and just really dig in and think strategically with the company, with a stakeholder at the company. Choose a specific character. Who's the customer profile you're speaking with? What do they ultimately want? And then what are the struggles and pain points that your target audience faces, and what problem are you solving for your customer, and what's been the status quo for solving the pain points that your customer has, and if it doesn't get solved, what does that look like? And then with the kind of like meets a guide is what are you offering in response to the problem? How can you put yourself in their shoes? Why are you qualified? And then kind of showing them the way, describing your product and service in detail, but not in a lot of detail, because in a minute you have about 160 words. So you don't have a ton of time, but how does your hero use your product, and how does he show up here, and what are the major features of your product and software? And we get them to lay those out, and then we basically rip them apart and say, what are the benefits of those features? Because we don't want to sell features. Nobody buys features. They buy the benefits that they're going to receive. So what's important to your audience? What benefit are they getting? And then, ultimately, what do you want them to do? Most people, we work with a lot of software companies, and a lot of them just want to get someone to sign up for their software as a service demo or something like that. And so what's that call to action? Sign up for 30-day free trial, something like that. Mm-hmm. And if you do, this is what's going to happen, is your life's going to be better, la-di-da.
Now, wait a second, Eric. Did you just say Uncovery? What's Uncovery?
I did, yeah. So it's kind of a play on discovery, but what we're doing is really uncovering a diamond in a haystack, and that's kind of the core of what we do. Is uncovering that diamond in a haystack.
Now, wait a minute. You're not uncovering a needle in a haystack, but a diamond in a haystack.
No, it's a diamond. It's like a diamond in the rough. You
Okay.
have the curse of knowledge in a company, and I have like a visual in my head and I can't quite get it out, but let's just say there's like this geode or something, and there's a big rock, and you have to break the rock open, and there's beautiful diamonds inside, or amethyst or whatever it is. I'm definitely not an archaeologist, so I apologize about that. But there's a diamond in the haystack rather than a needle. So that's part of Uncovery. We're doing more than just a discovery process, I believe.
Yeah, and so you find the diamond, and then from there you work with the client. Now, how could a client, this idea of curse of knowledge, I know that plays a big part in what you do, that we are also close to our own businesses and brands and work, that it's really hard for us to uncover the diamonds in the haystack, to find it. So, but before we would come to you to Explanify to help us, is there anything that we could be doing just at least to start fashioning our story, even though you might end up picking it apart and editing it and whatever, rightly so, but what could we be doing in preparation of getting our heads around our own story right now before we showed up?
Yeah, I think, no one's really ever asked me that question, surprisingly, or maybe not that way. So the steps I would probably take would be to kind of find companies that are doing good explainer videos like ourselves or some others, and we'll just watch a few videos and see if there's sort of a structure to it. Study the hero's journey. Search the internet for the hero's journey or the story cycle. You're listening to this podcast, so the story cycle, and just kind of look through those steps and start to kind of break out each section. There's a basic structure. It's character has a problem. They meet a guide, which is your company, and you're providing a tool that will help them reach their goals. And all of that is sort of an adventure. And that's a very simplified version, but it's, who are your customers? What do they want?
But you only have 90 seconds to tell this story, so you got to be pretty crystal clear with it.
Yeah, but when you bring it to us, you can have, 200 minutes of stuff and we can simplify it. So that's what I'm getting at, is just think about as much as you can. Put all the information there, get some decks together, pitch decks or whatever, and give it to someone like us, and we're going to be able to simplify it for you.
Yeah. What is the greatest frustration that you often experience with your customers when they're just trying to get this story across and it's not working for them?
Probably the curse of knowledge comes in again. It's you're so close to it, you're married to it. You said earlier, it's your baby, and that's exactly right. You're just intimately aware of your company and even ourselves. We have a hard time telling our story, and that's not because we're not good explainers. It's because we are us, and we're in it every single day. And I'm looking at a P&L, and I'm doing all these different things in regards to the space that I live in every single day. And so it's very hard for me to take a step back as an outsider and tell the story efficiently. So I love to just bounce stuff off other people. I think that's a great option. Does it pass the mom test? Does my mom understand what I do? If it doesn't, then you need to simplify it some more.
Yeah, that whole thought of dentists don't drill their own molars. They always have someone else coming in and gazing in their mouth to see what the heck's really going on. And I know we get so close to our worlds and our work that you got to get someone from the outside to at least be an editor for you, if nothing more, to co-write, to co-author that production. 90 seconds or less. We live in this day and age of ADHD, which is a communicable disease, and we are all the viruses as we continue to just crank out content. So how do you truly get an explainer video to cut through? There's got to be some sort of secret sauce above and beyond just the hero's journey and bringing story structure to it. Is there a science to it?
There's absolutely a science to it. Your brain burns calories. So there's complex facts, confusing ideas. These are all things that make your brain shut down. So there is brain science to it, and there's all kinds of stats we can give. And there's tons of infographics and different things with brain science out there, and it's becoming more and more popular. But you need to tap into some things that are already existing. You need to create a quick picture for comparison using a metaphor, perhaps, or building a bridge to connect to someone's deeply held beliefs or existing understanding of something. So if I say Uber for lawn care, what Uber is, and that just takes you a little step further away from kind of having to describe something that would take me 30 seconds to describe. I just punched it into this Uber category, and now you understand, it's sort of a crowdsourcing for lawn care. That kind of stuff is really helpful.
Tell us about a time that a client came to you and they were loaded down, packed with data, and you had to turn that data into drama in an explainer video that really worked for them.
Everybody comes packed with data. Everybody.
Yeah, it's our default, data default, our data bias. We got to run on data.
Yeah, it's lots of data, and it's lots of conjecture as well. It's lots of pieces from different brand teams and marketing teams and consultancies and things like that. The bigger the company, the more complex and the more information that they provide us. So there's definitely those times where we do that, and our writers and strategists, they like to work from abundance. Sometimes it can be daunting and too much, but there are ways to kind of go through that. I don't personally do some of that, so I'm more kind of on the finishing side of the scripts, if anything. But yeah, there's absolutely times like that where we have to dig into a lot of material.
Do you have an example of a client that you did that and it really turned out well, or it blew up because you didn't have enough story associated with it?
Yeah, I don't want to mention the client's name, but anything kind of in the Internet of Things space, or anything sort of advanced, like investment asset management and some of the higher level, like enterprise cloud computing type things. Some of those just IT, technical, sort of very complex world that they live in. They love to spit jargon and ad tech. Anything ad tech is just so complicated. They should have a dictionary that probably has like 300 acronyms in it, because it's just all BS. And you talk to those people and they say like it's all BS. And so I don't have any specific brand names that I can tell you, but definitely those industries for sure.
Yeah. I just was wondering, when you work your alchemy, that somebody showed up, if you had an example, then they just say, yeah, we want you and your team there, Eric, to talk about this, and you guys took that and truly melded that into a story, morphed it into a story that, like, we hear this all the time. They push back. Well, no, where are the numbers? Where are the data? But once you created that piece and you push it out there, they saw that conversion number go up and really proved to them that it's about turning data into drama.
No, absolutely. So case study stuff, that's what you're talking about. We've done
success stories.
Yeah, absolutely. There's one that I'm really proud of, that I really love, is a company called Case Complete. They're a software as a service, and they do something that not everybody quite understands. It's requirements management. And basically you're writing requirements and sort of outlines and agenda and structure for building product or service or some technical thing. So you're writing these requirements, and there's a status quo that people have been doing. They've been doing it with Excel and Word docs and kind of hodgepodging things together to make it work. And they came to us just needing to help explain the simplification of what their software can do, and just the side of research they've had. And they weren't quite sure if the simplicity we could get across would be really that helpful or converting. But in the end, we increased conversion on that landing page by 23%. And they've been using that video ever since. That's been an absolute huge case study for us, just how they have such a complex world that they live in, and they're just very, very intimate with it, very close together with it, and struggled to tell that story. And so we got to kind of come in, understand the status quo. I mean, that's not an industry we work in usually. It's not an industry that we understand, and that's actually what makes us better at our job. Is we're kind of the outsider that doesn't have the curse of knowledge. You can't read the label from inside the bottle, and that's what companies try to do. And you have to have an outsider kind of take a look.
Yeah, so you took their data, their high-level complex stuff, and what do you find the human impact when you're telling the story of what does this data actually mean to the individual day in and day out that are using the process, using the service?
I don't know that we quite get it into that sort of format. I think we try to find like the emotional triggers and the things that matter from kind of like a buyer psychology standpoint, things like that, but not quite exactly how you said it.
Okay. So what it kind of sounds like to me is with Explanify and your explainer videos, they're sort of like a trailer to a more epic engagement where you're ultimately trying to get your customers involved within your story, buying your product and service, and helping tell your story. But these explainer videos are like that little trailer that says, hey, we're going to tell you what this is, put a crystal clear point on it, but then have a call to action to get them involved in the story. Is that a fair enough explanation?
Absolutely. I mean, if you're talking about top of marketing funnel, it's like driving down the highway and seeing, a billboard, and it's like 23 miles and you're going to have the best soup you've ever had. 22 miles and you're going to have the best soup you've ever had, blah, blah, blah. And it's giving you teasers, and eventually it gets you to go to the place, but you're just getting this like information at a really quick high level, because you have 160 words in a minute. So you don't have a lot of time to really get in there. It's really just a high level, help you to understand it, help you to kind of get past the logical things, because people buy with emotion. And so speaking about the customer's pain points and the problem and the goals that they have and the stuff that you solve, that's just a good little teaser. I think the way you put it, trailer, is probably a really good way to describe it.
Yeah, so you're going from telling stories from 140 characters to 160 words in a minute. So you've got to be crystal clear. What do you think in this day and age with this mass amounts of communication, as we talked about, who out there is doing a really good job with their explainer videos? I mean, is there one, whether you guys did it or not, that you just like blows your socks off?
I've always been a huge fan of Dropbox. I don't know if you've ever seen their video, but they do such a killer job. And I mean, I don't remember the actual stats, done some research and written some on them, but basically that's kind of what made them successful. Was they decided on this sort of referral based model, and gave people discounts in exchange for watching the video and signing up, and for a trial, and the video helped explain what this was, kind of like thinking back to like Lee Lefever's days, or it's Common Craft's days, where people didn't know what Dropbox was. They didn't know what cloud computing or anything was at that point in time. Just a few, I don't remember how many years ago that was, probably 10 years ago now, 8, something like that. So at the time, nobody understood it. And so the video helped make things very simple and understandable and increase their conversion a ton. And I mean, I would say just made them a multi-million-dollar company pretty quickly.
So I just pulled up while you were talking, went to Google and searched the Dropbox explainer video. And it's like 2 minutes, 17 seconds. It's kind of black and whitish. I mean, it looks sort of kind of old-fashioned compared to what you're seeing in this day and age.
It's pretty old-fashioned. They've refreshed it since then. That's definitely that Common Craft style that we were talking about. That was very popular back then. I just went ahead and looked it up too. They had 25 million views on it in 2009, and grew to be quite a massive organization. Yeah. And probably not fully on that video, but it looks like they ended up at 100 million users. So that's pretty impressive. Just probably partly because of the referral model they came up with. It's really viral, but the video helps kind of get things going, and it looks like that's an extra $48 million in revenue a year for them. So that's pretty good.
Well, and they say thanks to the friends at Common Craft on this. And when I look at it,
it was Common Craft. Okay.
Yeah. And the one I'm looking at, we may not be talking about the same one, has 4.5 million views. But I mean, it is very basic. It's the production quality is just about as basic as it can get. How important is it? Because I know that some of the work you do all the work you do at Explanify is very much higher end graphics. Tell us, what do we need to be thinking about in our explainer video when it comes to the visual storytelling associated with it?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, that video was made back in 2009, and that's just one of those stories that always resonated with me. That's one that I saw in the beginning when I started this company was, they made that successful, and that wasn't even, high quality animation or visuals. And so that's something that I wanted to do, was create higher quality. And we're one of the top 5 explainer video companies, and that's for a reason. We do produce very high quality video and animation. So in regards to that, I would look for, simple graphics, nothing that's too complex. The more complex, the brain is going to get stuck on that moment of time in the video, and they're going to try to figure things out. And they're not going to be able to get to the whole message, and maybe not understand, the critical parts of the story, and may not understand or take the call to action that you give them. So you want beautiful design, but you don't necessarily want insane animation where it's moving and there's all this organic stuff happening and things are going left, right, up and down, back and forth in 3D Z depth. And then also not, making it too flashy or anything like that. And also, I'm not a big fan of like hand-drawn cartoon videos or whiteboard videos. That's where someone's drawing on a whiteboard. That's really effective for long presentation like a TED Talk, a 20-minute deal. One, because it's a lot more inexpensive to create that. But two, it's something to follow along and engage with visually. But it's not necessarily very effective for business anymore because one, it's oversaturated in the market. People did it too much. And two, it's just visually not that engaging anymore. People are very familiar with it. So avoid those two, that's for sure.
You see it everywhere. And I know there's a site out there that you can actually type in your copy and somehow it generates this sort of cheesy version of it for you. And a friend of mine showed me his quote unquote explainer video on it. And I just cringed. And all I could tell him is I said, burn it right now. Burn it. But it's on my computer. Trash it. Delete it. Blow it up. Whatever. Don't do that. Yeah. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of software as a service companies that have created these production mills for explainer videos. And that's how they can get them down to $200 or $300. And they're terrible character designs. They're goofy, and people are starting to realize that's not a really good representation for your brand. We're working with the GEs and Panasonics and Tyson Foods of the world, and there's no way they can get away with that unless it's an internal piece that nobody ever sees ever.
Yeah. All right, Eric, I want to take a break here for a second. And when we come back, I want to ask you some DIY, do-it-yourself techniques that our listeners could do just to start getting their head around their explainer video. Everything from, story structure, I know that you've already covered, but I want to dig a little bit deeper into how is an explainer video different than the other kinds of videos we create? And literally, how can we start road mapping our own explainer video? So if we did do it ourselves or came to a group like you, that we would be well ahead of the pack. So let's cover that right after these messages. Hey, I'm wondering if you've been over the Business of Story website lately. You know what? I've totally refreshed it. Yep, a whole new chapter has begun for me here, and you are at the center of the story. You see, I have one call to action on the homepage now that I think you're going to be interested in, and that is to schedule your free 30-minute impact call. My focus is to help leaders of purpose-driven organizations like you and yours clarify your story to grow your revenue, amplify your impact, even simplify your life. And I'm so confident in our proven story cycle system that I know I can help you clarify your story in 30 minutes or less. Just go to thebusinessofstory.com, click on the Impact Call button, fill out the teeny tiny survey so I have a better understanding of you and your organization, and I'll get back with you in 48 hours to schedule your call. All you invest is 30 minutes of your time. Believe me, it's the most invaluable free advice you'll ever get. I promise you that. So hit businessofstory.com right after this show and register for your free impact call and start telling your stories on purpose. Welcome back to Business of Story, and our guest today, Eric Hinson from Explanify. By the way, I love that name, Explanify. Well done on that. One of the top, explainer video creation companies in the country? Is that what you get? What you guys have?
Yeah, I would actually say in the world, absolutely.
Ah, in the world. And you judge that by the number of videos you do, or what's that based on?
No, we judge that on. I'm not sure what they're actually called, but there are have you heard of Clutch? Clutch.co. No. Okay, yeah, they're like these ranking and aggregator sites for creative companies.
Oh, okay.
And so yeah, we're constantly on the top 5 and sometimes top 10 list depending on which ones you're looking for. But Clutch is one that does graphic and design and marketing firms.
Congratulations on that. Now, if you guys want a little loving from Explanify out there, they've got a terrific download, a free guide, Turn Your Brand Story into a Conversion Machine, and you can download that at Explanify.com. But we're going to explain that here right now. So you've got these tips. It looks like 6 steps here of looking at and doing and creating your own DIY explainer video or in working with a group like yours. Number 1 is keep it short and simple.
Yeah, absolutely. The keep it short and simple is one of my favorites because the human attention span is about 8 seconds, which is 1 second less than a goldfish. When you know things,
that study came out about a year ago, and everybody loves it.
Everybody loves that phrase.
The thing is too, our attention span is smaller, but I think our bullshit monitor is like way up. People can spot bullshit, 3 seconds away. They can look at it. Nope, BS. So yeah. Anyways, keep it short and simple.
No, absolutely. And so when you know things that the other person doesn't, and you've forgotten what it's like to not have that knowledge, and you include jargon, and little of what you say will get through. Again, going back to like the brain science, your brain's functioning on calories. So the more confusing the idea, the more your brain is going to shut down. So short and simple is the key, especially with explainer video. You have 160 words, you have 60 seconds. It has to be short and simple. And then again, going back to your comment on content and the way we're just oversaturated with content. Look at Twitter feeds and stuff like that. It's annoying how much bad content there is. And so the shorter it is, the simpler it is, the more that it will actually be heard and it will be understood.
Well, then let me ask you too, how important is creativity? So I know short, sweet, that tends to get us to really focus on from point A to point Z as quickly as possible. But sometimes in there, we want to be a little bit more creative just so we stand out. How does creativity enter into this?
I love creativity, and I love everything about creativity and what it stands for. The thing about it is, though, you don't need to be too creative in like an explainer video or writing. You're pretty straightforward. The facts, the benefits that you're providing to your customers, to your listeners, to your audience, are what matter. And so the more creative you try to make things, the more the message may get muddied a little bit. And I know that's probably not the most popular thing to say, but because I love wit and I love creativity, I love creative writing, all those things. But in the end of the day, the message needs to be simple. Focus on a very clear message. Keep the jargon out, that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So number 2 in this is focus on the copy. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, the words you'd use to describe your business are just absolutely important. And so, like I said, the copy is absolutely critical. The visuals are really great. They're really important. But people, they need a clear story. So here's the thing. You watch a Pixar film, like let's say Finding Nemo. I think that was Pixar. Finding Nemo. So you have this beautiful film with a beautiful story. Now, if you didn't have a good story and you had Pixar style animation, it probably wouldn't be that effective. It wouldn't be that interesting. People would tune out. But if you had a killer story and subpar animation, I think the message would still get across. I think people would still share it. I think it would still be important. The fact that the message is clear, that's why I think focus on the copy is so important, because it's not necessarily about the visuals. I love clear visuals. I love creativity. But I do believe that the message is what absolutely is most important. And I would think that you do too, Park.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really do, because I agree with you. If you've got a killer story that takes the mind on a journey, and you don't have those killer visuals, it still moves people. Absolutely. And so often it seems like in this day and age, whether it's in film, a lot of TV commercials do this. They just give you a bunch of eye candy. There's no substance to the presentation or the story. There's no story, basically, but they're trying to wow you with a bunch of video wallpaper of showing you the great 3D graphics that they can do and that sort of thing. And I think the brain tires of that too, because the brain's constantly searching for meaning. So like you said, it's burning up calories to find meaning in what's going on around you for the sole purpose of keeping your body alive. And then, and if you don't have story that helps communicate that meaning, you're going to lose the brain. The brain's going to tune out, say, I don't get it. It's too complex. It's too confusing. I need to move on. I mean, literally fight or flight. They'll fight you if you're too complex, and it'll flight. It'll take off. It just is like, don't even bother me with this. But if you put a little bit of story arc and structure to it, I mean, it's amazing how powerful it is. It literally is the bewitchery of story. Now, in this too, you talk about having fun. So on one hand, we said we don't want to get too creative or overthink your creativity, but you do want to have fun because you got to stand out. As Sally Hogshead said, different is better than better. So we have to find ways to stand out. How do you do that in Explainer video when they all start kind of looking and feeling the same?
Well, the thing is to be not salesy. So be educational, be entertaining. That's what people care about. That's why people are watching. And so they're trying to get information out of you, but there's no reason that you can't inject some humor in there. We can have some fun along the way. I personally believe that business should be fun. And, I like to have fun on calls with, sales calls and different things like that. And, I like to have fun with the team. And so I don't know why the video shouldn't be fun either. At the end of the day, everybody's human. And is they're the ones that love Netflix and watching, something that's hilarious and having fun and goofing off with their friends and having parties and these kinds of things. And it's like, why are we not bringing that into the business world? So I think the quickest way to grab attention, to be memorable, is to make someone laugh. That's a great one. There was a Forbes article out there that said, strike an emotion hard. Whatever it is, strike it so hard that makes someone cry or laugh or be mad or whatever. Those are the things that we resonate with. We either buy into it and agree with you, or we are vehemently opposed. But either way, it's getting talked about.
Yeah. E to the 3. I call entertain, educate, engage, and start with that entertaining. Quite often we start with educating. We think we got to educate them right off the bat. But if we don't, like you said, tap into an emotion and get people listening, watching, participating in our story through being entertaining to the brain, tickling that reptilian brain a little bit, it's hard to educate, and it's really nearly impossible to engage. So finally, and I love this one because it seems so damn obvious. And yet, for whatever reason, even us in the persuasion and sales world have a bias against doing it. And that is simply having a clear call to action. I don't know why we're so afraid to ask for the order, but let's talk a little bit about that clear call to action in an explainer video.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've done your job to research the company or the customers that you're trying to reach. You identified a problem that they have and talked about the status quo, some of those things. You've done your work. You spent a good chunk of money making a video. Why are you not asking for them to sign up for your newsletter or call you for a demo or download your app or, discover the exciting, whatever, subscribe today? There's calls to action. There's tons and tons of calls to action, and you want them to do something. The whole point of business is to sell something. So like you said, it's so simple. It's stupidly simple, but it is so important to remember to have someone do that. It doesn't have to be salesy either. It can be watch the next video. It can be download this, free 50-page ebook where we're going to give you all these cool tips. That kind of stuff. It can be anything like that.
Yeah. Here's my call to action to all of our listeners. TFD. What do you want your audience to think, feel, and do? A lot of times we just think, well, here's my call to action. I definitely want them to do this, but we have to get them to think a certain way, have an emotional connection with you. And a lot of times it's that fear of missing out, that feeling of, oh my God, if I don't do this, my competition's already doing it. I need to get involved. But somehow spur and connect then an emotion attached to that thought, because you're changing the framework of the story. You're changing, moving them out of status quo of what they're currently doing into something new, better, that's going to help grow their sales. And then physically, what is it you want them to do? What do you want them to think, feel, and do? I've always found that if I've written a script or if doing something that seems to be falling a little bit flat, all I got to do is go and ask myself, all right, so what is my audience going to think when they hear or see this? Have I made them feel anything? And if not, then I got to go and punch up my story, of course. And then that final call to action, physically, what do I want them to do next?
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Final thoughts. Any last little tidbits that we should be thinking about as we're starting to get our head around our explainer video? And of course, before we call Explanify to help us do that, anything else that you have to offer?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think make sure your story connects on an emotional level, and your story doesn't have to be a story for a video. It doesn't have to be, it could be in an ad on Facebook. It could be. It could be anywhere, and it just needs to connect on an emotional level. Don't be salesy. Really try to be educational or entertaining. Some of the things that you said. Figure out the call to action, what you want them to do. And I think the biggest thing I always have to tell people and warn people is, bad videos can damage your brand. It can damage your messaging. Bad branding can damage your brand. So, allocate a decent budget to video marketing. If you're going to do it yourself, there are a lot of great resources out there. Wistia.com is a really great resource for DIY video. They're gonna pitch that stuff way more than I am. So I would definitely check those guys out and yeah, just do it.
How much does an explainer video typically cost if they're going through you or one of your competitors? What can someone expect to pay?
Yeah, I don't expect to pay anywhere between $10,000 and $20,000 for anything up to 2 minutes. That's probably a pretty good rate, no matter which top explainer video your company you're going to.
And what does that buy? Is that everything from creative development to the actual creation and producing of the spot or the video?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's kind of the very beginning, the story awakening process, which is sort of a strategic consulting type route, figuring out the brand messaging, writing the script, visual concepts. We do voiceover talent professionally. Then you take all those elements from storyboards and style frames and start to break them apart into thousands of layers. And then you build the animation with sound design and make it really kind of be the proverbial icing on the cake. It just kind of make this beautiful package come together and accelerate your business. And the whole process typically takes 8 to 10 weeks. Most companies are on that same trajectory as well. It's becoming a really popular niche, so it is getting a little longer as we get busy for the summer season. But yeah, it's the whole entire process.
And what is the shelf life of an explainer video?
That's a great question. I honestly think I've seen some customers have theirs for the whole 5 years we've worked together. Some are typically, I'd say the average is probably 1.5 to 2 years. The thing is, businesses change so fast, and so they do need updates after a year or so, just like you do with your website. So I would definitely give it probably 1.5 to 2 years. If you're changing a whole lot, then that's probably not going to work, but most people aren't, especially in B2B. I think, especially on their online marketing front, they're not changing a whole ton.
Yeah, great. Any last parting thoughts before we roll?
No, I think that's it. I think we covered a lot of good stuff there.
Yeah, well, Eric, I really appreciate it. How can people learn more about you and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Just go to Explanify.com. We're happy to just fill out the form. We're happy to talk to you. If you have any questions or anything, I would love to do that.
Explanify, EXPLAINIFY.com.
It's surprising how long that is. It's like 10 letters, but it doesn't seem like it because they're all very skinny letters.
They're all little. You're exactly right. I was looking at it, and when I started spewing it out there, I thought, man, this is taking a while. Well, Eric, thank you so much for being here on Business of Story. We really appreciate the overview of the explainer video world.
Absolutely. Thanks, Park.
All right. And thank you all for listening to this edition of Business of Story. If you would like to learn and use some of the tools to help you pull your story together, visit me over at businessofstory.com. I've got a ton of tools, and I have the DIY brand story strategy guide just waiting for you to download. It's $45. We've had a ton of success with it. Great success stories around that. You can do it yourself. It'll help you pull your brand story strategy together. I can help you with that process. Once you're done with it, you can send it to me and we can work it together, or you can bring me in and I can work with your entire team on a one-on-one basis. So got that plus lots of other story ideas, tips, and techniques for you at businessofstory.com. And please join us again next week when we will have another story artist like Eric here to help you craft and tell compelling brand stories that sell. And until then, have a wonderful life.